Hello students, this is video number 2 for our Politics in Latin America class. So this one is going to be on the just kind of an overview of the content of the course. I've actually been teaching Latin American politics really for the last 25 years, last quarter of a century, and I've taught it in different ways over time, and really it's only been recently, probably within the last 5 years or so, that I've settled on a format that I think, and an emphasis, I guess, that I find particularly helpful, particularly useful for the students, and I wanted to share a little bit about that in this video. But briefly, and we'll go over the details of it over the course of the next week or 2 weeks, primarily this next week or so. So the emphasis of this class is on contemporary Latin America. You'll see this in the course description of the syllabus that I shared with you yesterday. Basically, this is not a history class. As a Latin Americanist myself, I'm not trained as a historian. I know the history of the region well, but the emphasis in this class is on the contemporary period, in particular the period following the widespread process of democratization that happened in the region in the 1980s, especially in the 1980s, to a lesser extent in the 1990s. So we're going to look at, the period, roughly 35-year period of redemocratization, of the reintroduction of democracy in the region. So the focus of the course is on that. The first portion of the class, roughly the first probably 2/3 of the class, we will examine democracy in the region by looking at institutions, primarily institutions. I go a little bit beyond that to look at political culture and civil society as well. And I'll talk about that in a second. But primarily, we're going to look at the region through the lens of institutions, of what are called formal institutions, such as political party systems, electoral systems, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and so on and so forth. So we're going to take those institutions and examine the region through the lens of those institutions. And that's going to be the bulk of the first portion of the class. In addition, one of the things that I'm adding to the class this term is a much deeper conversation about civil society in Latin America. Civil society is that part of a society that is organized. Typically, you can think of non-governmental organizations as part of civil society, social movements as part of civil society, interest groups as part of civil society. So we're going to spend a little bit more time on that this semester, and then in the region, and then with a focus on Brazil. And in Brazil, we're going to focus on communities that have organized in the favela communities, the poorer communities of Rio de Janeiro, of Rio, where I've conducted research on a variety of aspects over the last year or so. And so that's going to be a focus of the class, and how they organize, how they mobilize around certain themes. You're going to examine when you look at the syllabus, and I encourage you to look at the syllabus carefully. We're not going to go over it with a fine-tooth comb tomorrow, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them tomorrow. But if you look at the syllabus, one of the assignments is for you to actually do your own analysis of the news project called Rio on Watch, which is really news produced by residents in these communities. And so it's a fascinating news outlet, because well, I don't want to give it away, but it's very different than what you would typically see in mainstream media such as CNN or Fox News or something like that. So you'll get a chance to talk about, to analyze that on your own. That's the content of the class. We'll talk more about that over the course of the next couple of weeks.